Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully, you guys are having a great Wednesday. Today, we're going to recap Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals between the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll also preview Game 4 between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Montreal Canadiens, and just a couple of things that the Habs need to do in Game 4 if they want a chance to still be in the series against the Carolina Hurricanes, because they're down 2-1. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. We'll start off with the Golden Knights and Avalanche Game 4 game from Tuesday, and it will be the VGK Vegas Golden Knights coming out on top with the 2-1 win over the Colorado Avalanche at home in Game 4 on Tuesday. They complete this series shockingly, and they sweep the President's Trophy winner Colorado Avalanche, and they advance to the Stanley Cup Final for the third time in their franchise history. They only played 9 seasons in the league, and this is their third Stanley Cup Final appearance. Obviously, their first one was in 2018, their inaugural season. 2017-18 season was the Golden Knights' inaugural season. They went to the Cup Final in 2018, lost to the Washington Capitals in 5 games, and then 5 years later, in 2023, they go to the Stanley Cup Final again. This time they win the Stanley Cup, their first Stanley Cup in franchise history, and they win against the Florida Panthers in 5 games. And now, 3 years later, they go back to the Stanley Cup Final for just the third time in their franchise history. So congrats to the VGK Vegas Golden Knights. They will play the winner of the Carolina Hurricanes and the Montreal Canadiens series. So we'll see who wins that one. The Golden Knights do what the New York Knicks did to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA playoffs. They sweep them. Now they're off to the finals. And fun fact, with the win, the Golden Knights extend their postseason winning streak to 6 games, and they are now 19-4-1 under head coach John Tortorella. This counts both regular season and playoffs. In the regular season, they were 7-0-1. In the playoffs, they're 12-4. And he took over as head coach on March 29th. And when the Golden Knights fired Bruce Cassidy as their head coach, which I heard rumors that he might be in talks to being head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, or I don't even know which team's going to coach this. Maybe he might even coach the Toronto Maple Leafs, because Maple Leafs are, I think, without a head coach. They fired Craig Berube as their head coach. Maybe they might get in Bruce Cassidy, who sees. But yeah, with the Golden Knights being under head coach John Tortorella, they have been playing so well under him. Defensively, they've just been the better team. They've been so disciplined. And interesting fact about head coach John Tortorella, this is the second time that John Tortorella's team that he coached has swept the President's Trophy winners. Of course, as you think back to 2019, and I remember that series very well. 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, when John Tortorella was the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. They swept the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs. That was in the first round. I remember that series all too well. And like this series, we were in shock about that. We were in shock that the Blue Jackets swept the Lightning that year, just like we were when the Golden Knights swept the Avalanche this year. So John Tortorella's Columbus Blue Jackets, 2019 Blue Jackets, I should say, sweeps the Lightning. Now his 2026 Vegas Golden Knights sweep the Colorado Avalanche. So, yeah, I'm going to be very happy for Mitch Marner. I'm ready for Mitch Marner, excuse me. I'm rooting for Mitch Marner all the way, because this is his first ever Stanley Cup Final appearance. And after all the years that he's had in the playoffs with Toronto, it absolutely deserves this Stanley Cup Final moment. Now, I'm pretty sure Mitch Marner will still say, like, he's still, grateful for all the times that he's been on the Toronto Maple Leafs, because that's his hometown. He's from Toronto. He's a Toronto kid. He's not going to let the media discourage him for saying, like, after all the horrible years, like, he's had some horrible years in Toronto. This is his first ever Stanley Cup Final appearance. Like, that part I am happy about, but in Mitch Marner's case, I don't think he'll let the media get to him about that. So, yeah. But even if you are a Leafs fan, maybe Leafs fans might still be upset about this, though, about Mitch Marner going to the Stanley Cup Final with the Vegas Golden Knights. But I think, in a way, they should feel happy for them. They should be happy. Like, I know most Leafs fans were saying, even when Mitch Marner was on the team, that he sucked throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. He sucked. He wasn't any good. He wasn't providing the offensive spark that they needed in the playoffs. But if I was a Leafs fan, I would still be happy for Mitch Marner. So I think Leafs fans need to stop being selfish and be in support of Mitch Marner. Even when Mitch Marner returned to Toronto in the regular season with the Golden Knights, there were still little Leafs fans that were booing him. Like, you guys need to stop being selfish. This is a player that played, he came to the league in 2015. He played like about at least 10 seasons, like 9-10 seasons with you guys. So he's done a lot for your team. He may have not done a lot in playoffs, but he's done a lot for your team. So you guys need to stop being selfish and, be in support of Mitch Marner making the Stanley Cup Final, because he absolutely deserves this. Like, it's not his fault that you guys could not get the job done in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So stop being selfish. But at least you guys will be getting Gavin McKenna. And as a Blackhawks fan, I will be upset about that, because we wanted to be the ones getting Gavin McKenna, but you guys will. So at least you guys can be happy for that. But yeah, I'm going to be rooting for Mitch Marner all the way. I hope the Golden Knights do win the Stanley Cup. And if they do, I'm going to be happy for Mitch Marner. And this was him getting hyped about going to the Stanley Cup Final. His first ever appearance in the Stanley Cup Final. I'll turn it up for you guys. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just turn it up. Yeah, he was so hyped about it.
Lost 3 straight games in regulation. A year and a half.
This is an 8-second video from BR Open Ice on Instagram. But yeah, you can feel you can tell the emotion, the hype. Like, he's happy for this. He absolutely deserves to be in the Stanley Cup Final, and he's currently leading the playoffs in points. It's projected to be the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He's one of the top 5 players that should be rewarded the Conn Smythe Trophy when it's all said and done. We'll just have to see how everything will go. Mike Stone, he set the tone early in this game for the Vegas Golden Knights. He opened the scoring with a first period breakaway goal and immediately gave Vegas momentum in front of their home crowd at T-Mobile Arena. Cole Smith had the other goal for the Golden Knights. His goal was the game-winning goal, because this was, as you guys know, a low contested scoring game. It wasn't a lot of high scoring. And this one, obviously, it was a 2-1 win for the Vegas Golden Knights. But Cole Smith added the insurance goal for Vegas in the third period, gave him a little bit of a breathing room. And his goal was the game-winning goal. He scored with 5 minutes and 45 seconds remaining in the third period. Carter Hart, he made 20 saves on 21 shots, faced the net. And for the Colorado Avalanche, Gabriel Landeskog, he scored the lone goal for Colorado in this one. Scored with 2 minutes and 3 seconds remaining in the third period. He scored 2 minutes and 3 seconds remaining in the third period. And that was to give them life. That was to give them hope. In the third period, we've seen the Avs come back before in the Stanley Cup playoffs, particularly in Game 5 against the Minnesota Wild, but they could not get the job done here in the conference finals against Vegas. They were pushing aggressively in the closing minutes of this one, but could not find an equalizer before time ran out on them, and just heartbreaks for the Avalanche fans, the players, for Jared Bednar, and everybody that was a part of that Avalanche team. Was not expecting this series to end in a sweep. I expected this series to go 7 games. I actually had the Avs winning in 7, but that did not go out too well. Mackenzie Blackwood did get the start this one. This was his first start in the series. Scott Wedgwood started the first 3 games for the Colorado Avalanche, and Jared Bednar switched things up. He went with Mackenzie Blackwood in Game 4, and he put on, despite the Avalanche losing this heartbreaking game, he did put on a great performance in this one. He made 24 saves on 26 shots faced the net in this one, so he wasn't too bad in this one. I thought he had a great performance, but the Avalanche, they did not just show up. They didn't show up when they needed to. And yeah, they are eliminated from the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs. They were outscored in this series 14-7. And the President's Trophy curse continues. The 2012-13 Chicago Blackhawks remain the only recent team. The only recent team, because there's been other teams that have gone on to win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup, but no other team has done it since the 2012-13 Chicago Blackhawks when they beat the Boston Bruins in 6 games in 2013 to win the Stanley Cup. They also won the President's Trophy in the regular season. Of course, those who are new to hockey, the President's Trophy goes out to the best team in the regular season. It goes out to the number 1 team in the league in the regular season. So the best team in the regular season receives the President's Trophy. And that curse still continues. So yeah, I don't know who's going to break this curse, guys. I thought the Avalanche were going to do it. I thought they were destined to do it. I thought they were going to do it. They were going to win both the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup. Because don't forget, they came into the playoffs with massive expectations. They were expected to win the Stanley Cup. After winning the President's Trophy and having one heck of a regular season. We thought this could be the team that can break the curse. But they didn't get the job done. But let's share some key takeaways from Game 4 of the Colorado Avalanche and Vegas Golden Knights. Takeaway number 1. Vegas was in complete control throughout the game. Throughout the first period, second period. Even though this was a low-scoring game, Vegas was the dominant team. From start to finish, they were the dominant team in this one. They controlled the flow of the play from beginning to end. The Golden Knights were better offensively, defensively, physically, and just dominated every part of this game in Game 4 between them and the Colorado Avalanche. And if you take a look at the natural stat trick numbers, you guys know how much I love natural stat trick. I love using that when I be liking to talk about analytics in my podcast. I'll be having that as notes. But anyways, if you look at the natural stat trick numbers, Vegas finished 57-44 in terms of shot attempts. They outshot Colorado 26-21 in this game overall. They have 14 block shots. That kind of shows how much of a defensive team that they have been under head coach John Tortorella. And I was just listening to the Pat McAfee show, and PK Subban was on there. He was talking about the Stanley Cup playoffs and how if you want to be a hockey player, if you want to be an NHL player, John Tortorella is the right coach for you. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to be brutally honest with you. He's not going to be one of those nice guys who says, hey, you're doing good, when really, even you know yourself that you didn't play as good as you wanted to. Now, I'm not discouraging any players, because I think every player, every hockey player can play to the best of their ability. I really think they can. So I'm not trying to trash talk anyone. But I think if you want to take your game to the next level, I think if you want to make the NHL right away, if you want to, get some hard, honest, brutal feedback on your game, John Tortorella is the right coach for you. So that's all I'm saying. You see how Vegas did. Mitch Marty even said it in his interviews, like he's going to tell you how it is. He's going to give it to you straightforward. He's not going to sugarcoat it for you. He's not going to put it in nice. Well, he probably will be nice to you, but most of the time he's going to be really honest. He's going to tell you how this is. You're playing good, you're playing good. You're playing bad, you're playing bad. There's some things in your game you need to work on. He's going to tell you all of that. But yeah, the Golden Knights overall were just the better team in this one. Like I said, they had 57 shot attempts to the Avalanche's 44 shot attempts. They outshot Colorado 26-21 in this game, 14 block shots, and controlled over 70% of the expected goals at 5-on-5 play. And also, the Golden Knights had 32 scoring chances to the Avalanche's 15 scoring chances. And in terms of high danger scoring chances, the Golden Knights had 15 high danger scoring chances to the Avalanche's 6 high danger scoring chances. And the key point about this is they didn't just outshoot Colorado; they owned the ice. They owned the ice, and not just because they were playing at home, but I mean, if you take a look, like Game 4 and probably even Game 3 of that second and third period, they owned the ice. The Avalanche would constantly push to the outside, while Vegas, as pretty much what I've been saying, along with many other hockey analysts have been saying throughout this whole entire series, is that they controlled the middle of the ice. They generated clean looks. The Avalanche gave them those looks. They weren't doing well defensively against the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights were able to take advantage of their opportunities when they needed to the most, and that's why they won this series. They took advantage of those opportunities. And I think one takeaway, and I'll probably say it again later on throughout the segment, is that when the Avalanche's top stars went down, the Golden Knights took advantage of that. Like, we've seen that so far throughout the series. When Cale Makar missed games 1 and 2, the Golden Knights were able to get looks against Colorado's weakened defense without Cale Makar. And then in Game 3, you had Nathan MacKinnon briefly going down after taking a puck to the ankle. And he went back to the locker room, came back for Game 3. I was surprised he was able to play Game 4, but you got to understand, hockey players are different. They're built different. If this was a basketball player who got hurt like that, they probably would be out for the remainder of the series, and probably for at least 2-3 months. If this was a soccer player, then they wouldn't be able to come back from this. Hockey players are just built different. So, I mean, it kind of really didn't surprise me that he was able to play Game 4. No, but yeah, injuries like that are so tough. But yeah, Golden Knights took advantage of those opportunities that they had, not just in Game 4, but also throughout the series against the Colorado Avalanche. Like, we didn't see that much from Nathan MacKinnon. He never really got loose consistently, and Cale Makar being out for games 1 and 2, and even when he returned for Game 3, he couldn't dictate the transition the way that he usually does, the way that we're used to seeing Cale Makar play. And outside of Gabriel Landeskog's late goal in the third period, Colorado never consistently generated enough offense. They weren't dangerous offensively. And, that's probably the most impressive part of the sweep overall, is that the Avalanche, like I said, President's Trophy winners, finished first in the regular season, best team in the league, dangerous offensively at the time. But Vegas was like, you know what, we're not going to sweat it. And they took full control of this series. They made the Avalanche look uncomfortable for 4 straight games throughout the series. And this game really felt like the perfect example of John Tortorella hockey. Structured, they were great defensively, they played physical on the walls, they were opportunistic, offensively as well. So their depth just took complete control of the series. And Mitch Marner continued to do what Mitch Marner can do. He continued to notch points throughout this conference finals. He's currently the NHL playoff leader in points, and like I said earlier, he could be one of the favorites to win the Conn Smythe Trophy when it's all said and done. And still continuing on with Vegas' depth. Takeaway number 2, they completely overwhelmed Colorado throughout this series. So Mark Stone, like I said, scored the opening goal. Had a great performance. He had goals in the back-to-back games. He returned for Game 3 for Vegas. Scored then, scored now. Goals in back-to-back games for him. But again, it wasn't the stars that was carrying Vegas. Cole Smith scoring that insurance goal in the third period is a perfect example of what made this team so dangerous offensively and why they were better defensively. The Golden Knights kept getting contributions from every line, while the Avalanche were too reliant on their top players. Like when Cale Makar went down, I know I'm kind of saying those same stuff over and over again. Like they couldn't get any secondary scoring. Their offense couldn't get any secondary scoring, and they generated too little throughout the series. Vegas kept rolling away with this. They rolled away with this series. They got the job done. There's a song by Tupac that's called "Picture Me Rolling," and the Avalanche pictured the Golden Knights rolling. They couldn't really do too much in this series against Vegas. The Golden Knights, like I say, they finished with 32 scoring chances in this game to the Avalanche's 15. They were trying to get those looks, whereas the Avalanche could not. That's like almost half of the scoring chances that they had against the Golden Knights. And I think that's why the series became so lopsided, despite the Avalanche's star elite offensive power. Even though they had that offensive power, like going into this one, before we knew that Cale Makar was going to be playing games 1 and 2, like Vegas just looked in complete control. They looked so composed, calm. They were so demeanor throughout the series. The Avalanche could not do anything about it. They couldn't figure out a breakthrough to get through Vegas structure. And takeaway number 3, John Tortorella is the right man for the job. Now, we knew the Golden Knights were talented before John Tortorella arrived, but ever since then, they became so disciplined. They became so, in complete control. Like, the Golden Knights, they look like a better team than they did. They look like a better team now than what they did when John Tortorella arrived. Like, they were still good then when Bruce Cassidy was taking over. They won a cup with Bruce Cassidy in 2023. But now they just look different, like completely unrecognizable, almost. Like since he took over, the Golden Knights have bought into a harder, tighter playoff identity, and Game 4 in particular was an example of that. Colorado had only generated 1.40 expected goals at 5-on-5 the entire night. And that is almost impossible to do against a roster that has this much talent, unless your structure is elite. So the Golden Knights were in complete control this one. They were in complete control throughout the series. And I think a bonus takeaway from this is the injuries for Colorado have plagued them. It cost them this series because nobody else stepped up when Cale Makar went down, defensively and offensively, because Cale Makar is considered an offensive defenseman, by the way. And I said that about him too many times. And even on special teams, when the Avalanche were on special teams, like nobody can quarterback the power play the way Cale Makar can. We didn't see any secondary scoring. We didn't see any other players step up when Cale Makar went down for games 1 and 2, when Nathan MacKinnon briefly went down for game 3, and now in game 4 you had Marty Natchez go down, but he still played throughout the remainder of game 4. He took a hit from Tomas Hertl. I believe this was in the second period. or third period. Was this the second period? I don't remember. But he took a hit from Tomas Hertl in Game 4 and went back to the locker room. And then he played throughout the rest of the game. But I think the injuries themselves had cost him. Even Valery Nichushkin was out for the Colorado Avalanche. He got injured in Game 3. He did not play Game 4. So the injuries for the Avalanche had cost them throughout the series. So Games 1 and 2, statistically, the Avalanche were in control. They were the better team, but, just couldn't generate their looks, and they couldn't get any help from any of their secondary players. But that's my thoughts on that. Let me know you guys' thoughts about that in the comments down below. Would love to see you guys' comments about that. Did you agree with some of the stuff I said? Did you disagree? It's okay if you disagree with me. I have no problem with you guys disagreeing with some of the stuff I say. Or even if you agree with some of the stuff I said, please drop in the comments down below. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts as well, and I will try to respond in the best way I can. But just wondering, especially if you're fans of one of these teams, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts about what I just said in the comments down below, or if you have anything that you would like to add on. Any questions you might have, whatever the case may be, drop them in the comments down below. Well, now let's preview Game 4 between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Montreal Canadiens Eastern Conference Final Series. So the Hurricanes lead the series 2-1. They won Game 3 in overtime, 3-2. Andrei Svechnikov with the overtime game-winning goal. That's back-to-back overtime game winners for the Carolina Hurricanes, and they are now 5-0 in the postseason when it comes to playing in overtime. So they are no strangers to playing overtime hockey in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. But now let's talk about the Montreal Canadiens, because the Carolina Hurricanes, I pretty much said last episode, I pretty much said what was enough to be said about them. Like, ever since that fluky Game 1 loss, they came back to playing Carolina Hurricanes hockey. They look like themselves again after the 6-2 loss that they had in Game 1. But for the Canadiens, because if the Hurricanes go up 3-1 in the series, I was saying this off air when the Golden Knights beat the Avalanche. I was saying this off air. If the Hurricanes go up 3-1 in the series is pretty much over with. And so I want to talk about 3 things that the Canadiens need to do to win Game 4 and have a chance to still be in the series, and have a 50% chance to still be in the series if they do win Game 4 tonight. And the number one thing, and I feel like the biggest key of this Game 4 for them that they need to do, and PK Subban has said this on the Pat McAfee show, is that they need to get back to playing their identity. When Montreal has looked best throughout these Stanley Cup playoffs, especially against Buffalo and Tampa, they play calm, fast, composed style of playoff hockey. They don't get overwhelmed. They don't get pressured. Like, they faced adversity before, and we've seen them come up big in those adversities. We've seen them came up big in those adversities. They came up to the top in those adversities. So they have no problem with the adversity facing them. But in these last 2 games, Games 2 and Game 3, that version of the Canadiens has not shown up. Carolina is in complete control. They dragged this series into the exact type of hockey that they want to play. Heavy forechecking. We talked about that before, on and off air. Excuse me. They like to play low event hockey, constant pressure shifts, and they like to be dominant offensively and defensively. And if you take a look at the stats for Game 3, they were brutal for Montreal. Carolina controlled 67% of the shot attempts, 75% of the shots on goal, and over 72% of the expected goals at 5-on-5. And the Canadiens, they cannot have another game where they feel like they can do too much little in their own zone. They can't feel trapped in their own zone. Like, let's see. I'm trying to see if I have something around me that I can use as an example for it, but I don't think I do. Well, let's just say, actually no, never mind. If I had something around me, I could use that as an example. But let's just draw a big circle, shall we? We can draw a big circle. Now, the Canadiens, throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, when they have faced the adversity, they have been the better team offensively. But now, when the Carolina Hurricanes come into play, that circle begins to thin for the Canadiens. It's like they are pushing them in their own zone. Like, they are pushing them into their comfort zone. And you know the saying is, you got to step out of your comfort zone. Well, the Hurricanes are pushing the Canadiens into their comfort zone. Like, it's this big circle that they're in. They have all the energy and momentum. They're dangerous offensively. But in games 2 and 3, Hurricanes took control, and that circle began to thin. It began to be a small circle for the Montreal Canadiens. But I will say, like I said, the Canadiens have responded to adversity. They bounced back multiple times earlier in the playoffs, especially against Tampa and Buffalo after losing a game. They're now 5-2 overall throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs after losing a game. They lost game 2 versus Tampa. They won game 3. They lost game 4 versus Tampa. They won game 5. They lost game 6 versus Tampa. They won game 7, second round, against the Buffalo Sabres. They lose game 1 versus Buffalo. They win game 2. They lose game 6 versus Buffalo. They win game 7. But now you get to the Carolina Hurricanes, they lose game 2 and they also lose game 3. Now entering game 4, they're now entering game 4 after another loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. And this right here is honestly a huge reason why, some people could see Montreal making this a series despite being down 2-1. It's the ability to bounce back every time after losses. So if they can just slow the game down mentally, stay composed emotionally, and start playing with confidence again, this series suddenly feels completely different heading into game 5. But if they can't do that, if they can't show the Hurricanes like, hey, we are meant for this. We're not any other team. We are meant for this. We know that we can play against you very well. Even though games 2 and 3 they haven't shown that. But if they can show the Hurricanes that we are meant for this. We proved it in game 1 where we beat you guys. We laid the smackdown on you guys 6-2 in game 1. If we can prove that throughout the rest of the series for games 4, game 5, and potentially game 6, then they might have a shot at going to the Stanley Cup Final and facing the Golden Knights, which would be a conference final rematch from 2021 if that does happen, though. But we'll just have to see. And I think another takeaway from Game 2 is the Canadiens need way more offensive zone time. The biggest statistical takeaway in Game 3 is how little the Canadiens offense have created. They generated only 13 shots on goal in Game 3. They finished with just 2.06 expected goals compared to Carolina's 5.43 expected goals. Carolina controlled possession for long stretches of time, especially during those first 3 periods before, the game went into overtime. And remember the big circle I talked about for the Canadiens where offensively they are dangerous, but when the Hurricanes came in, that circle began to thin. The circle began to thin for the Montreal Canadiens. So it's kind of like, to my point, like they need more ozone time. They need more ozone time. They need that big circle. And I know you guys some of you probably might not see my point, though. But the point I'm making with the circle observation is the Canadiens can create a lot of ozone pressure. They can create a lot of that. but that ozone pressure begins to go down. The circle begins to thin when the Hurricanes took control in games 2 and 3. And the Canadiens, they're really good. They have a really good offense. I'm pretty sure you guys know that, especially if you're a Habs fan. Offensively, they're really good. I believe if they can just show it in Game 4 like they showed throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, then this could still be a series. They got a lot of good offensive players like Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Juraj Slafkovsky, Ivan Demidov, Alex Newhook of all people. So they are really good offensively, and they got a good young defenseman in Lane Hudson as well. So it is possible. It is possible. It could be possible. They just have to limit the Hurricanes' aggressive forechecking and offensive play. They have to have cleaner breakouts. They have to have shorter shifts, more ozone time. That's going to be the main important thing out of all this. More ozone. Excuse me. The main thing out of this is more ozone time for the Montreal Canadiens. Like, even if they don't dominate possession overall, they at least need to force Carolina to defend for longer stretches. Because right now, Freddie Anderson is seeing way too little sustained pressure. And number 3, the Stars have to outplay Carolina throughout the series. Not just for Game 1. We saw that in Game 1. It can't just be Game 1. A team like Carolina, even though you went 3-0 against them in the regular season, the playoffs is a different breed. The Hurricanes team, I mean, they're still the same in the regular season, but they're even but I would say that they're more different throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like, in the playoffs, your best players have to win you these games. And the Hurricanes' top guys, best players have been doing that with those back-to-back overtime game-winning goals from Nikolai Ehlers and Andrei Svechnikov. The Canadiens haven't been doing that so far throughout the series, and that needs to change heading into Game 4. So far, the Hurricanes are forcing the Canadiens to play uncomfortable, not Montreal Canadiens type hockey. So, low space, heavy pressure, and less ozone time for the Habs so far throughout the series. So, Game 4 is going to be pivotal for both of these teams, in my opinion. For the Hurricanes, a chance to get a stranglehold on this series and go up 3-1. And the Canadiens, a chance to prove that, hey, we've been through this. We've been there, done that. We faced adversity. We faced the criticism. We want to show everybody that we still have a chance to make this a series, and we still have a chance to win this series. Not just be in this series, but win this series in general and go on to the Stanley Cup Final and face the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's the motive. That would be the motive I would have if I was playing for the Montreal Canadiens right now. Or if I was a Montreal Canadiens fan, that would be the motive that I would have if I'm the Canadiens. If I'm the Hurricanes, I would still play my game. We pressured them before, and we could take a stranglehold on this series. We can go up 3-1 in the series, have a better chance at closing out the series at home. Because at home in the playoffs, from recent years that I've seen, the Hurricanes play so much better at home than they do on the road throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just from recent memory and from recent years that I've seen the Hurricanes throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's why I said if they go up 3-1, Game 5 at home, I believe they can close it out if they do win Game 4 and go up 3-1 in the series. But we'll just have to see what happens in Game 4 tonight. What are you guys' thoughts? Again, I would like to hear you guys' thoughts, agreements, disagreements, questions, statements, comments, whatever. Toss them down in the comments section down below. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals is tonight. It is a 7 o'clock p.m. puck drop on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. The Hurricanes lead this best of 7 series 2-1. have a chance to go up 3-1 against Montreal Canadiens. They got to win. I mean, it's 50-50. Both, like, part of me says the Hurricanes need to win more, and the other part of me saying the Canadiens need to win more. So this is going to be a pivotal game for both of these teams. They're going to need to lock in for both of these teams. So it's going to be an electric game for us, as always. Canadiens, Bell Center, one of the best arenas that you can go to watch not only a regular season game, but a playoff game. So I know they're going to be loud. They're going to bring the intensity. They're going to bring the high. They're going to bring the energy for Game 4 tonight. So be prepared. But that's going to do it for this episode of Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure to follow the Hockey Talk TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys next time for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.